I remember complaining when my brother forced me to watch a sword and sorcery film. It was none other than Highlander from 1986, and not even halfway through the movie, I realized he definitely did not deserve to have his secret spilled as retaliation because, oh boy, I was hooked. Yes, this film has its flaws, and it might very well come off as cheesy and outdated. I mean, the city scenes look like they came straight out of the Terminator. See, Highlander definitely has its silly moments, and speaking of silly, the creators didn't always make the best decisions when it came to casting, filming, or production. Some of those choices are downright hilarious in hindsight, and if you thought the movie was bizarre, just wait till you hear these filmmaking stories. Let's go.
Pay me, and they don't pay me. They don't want to pay me anything. And I don't have a quote or anything, but much of anything. So they pay me nothing.
Clancy Brown was paid almost nothing. You know, when someone is cast as a villain, they know what they're signing up for. A good thrashing at the end of the film, sometimes fatal, and the audience spewing hate at the character. But Clancy Brown, fully aware of those stakes,
how much are you going to pay me? And they don't pay me.
Had no idea he would walk away almost empty-handed. The man went all in and brought the Kurgan to life. Had us yelling, "Give it to him," during the final scenes, and yet in real life, he got nothing. Brown loved the story and met with the producers, but when he asked how much they were going to pay him, the answer was,
so they pay me nothing.
Essentially nothing. Since he didn't have a quote or leverage at the time, they paid him almost zero money and were simply happy to get the movie made cheaply. Brown later shared on the podcast Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum that while the college kid who wrote the script, George Whidden, became an overnight millionaire,
he's this kid out of college who wrote this thing, and suddenly he's a millionaire because he gets a percentage of a real budget.
He didn't even receive residuals because the film was under a basket contract, meaning the profits were absorbed into a larger accounting structure, and this major character saw no ongoing payments even though the movie became popular. He died on screen at the end of Highlander, and apparently so did his bank account. No, I did not realize Highlander had such a dark sense of humor till now, and I absolutely agree.
These buzzards, these scavengers.
With him calling the producers scavengers.
Greetings.
Sean Connery played an Egyptian Spaniard with a Scottish accent, and no one stopped him. They bagged Sean Connery, dude. Honestly, of all the other USPs of Highlander, he was the biggest one. Connery was cast as Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. Yeah, the name's a mouthful, but come on, this man was an Egyptian immortal who'd been living for centuries. A long name is the least he deserves. Sean's character spent most of his life in Japan and Spain and was a highly skilled swordsman who wanted to take Connor and his pupil and train him to defeat the Kurgan. However, Australian director Russell Mulcahy effed up a little while casting the mentor and mentee. The thing is, Sean was Scottish by birth, and Russell gave him the role of an Egyptian-turned-Spaniard mentor, while he took the French-American actor Christopher Lambert as the mythic Scottish hero, aka Sean's mentee, Connor. When it came to delivering the lines, Sean did not try to adapt a Spanish accent, and the producers didn't even push him to do so. They were just glad to have him in the movie and cash in on his star power. So, they just let Sean be Sean. As a result, we got a Spaniard character speaking in his natural, thick Scottish accent. In fact, the slightest Spanish connection we had to Sean was when he had to record the opening narration in the ballroom of his villa in Spain. I know it feels like a practical joke at this point, but Sean's mismatched dialect only added a weird charm to Highlander.
In the end, there can be only one.
Sean Connery only agreed to work for a few days and threw quite a tantrum. Understandable. Frankly, Highlander does not even have the clout to bring in Sean Connery. Mulcahy himself was nervous AF to knock on the door of his hotel room because he was going to meet 007. Thankfully, they had a great afternoon over cucumber sandwiches and tea, and the director convinced Sean to come aboard, who, after rejecting the proposal of playing the ritual character, showed interest in playing Ramirez instead. He agreed to play the part, but could only spare 7 days of his busy schedule. That explains why everyone had to just suck it up and go with his accent. Mulcahy described that though Sean was wonderful, the shooting schedule was extremely hectic. They had to cram all of Ramirez's scenes within the 7-day window. The director explained how they shot Sean directly and then filmed him over Chris's shoulder while his close-ups had to be done with a double weeks later. Mulcahy had to keep on improvising to wrap up as quickly as possible. Thus, he had 3 cameras of different sizes set up on Sean and ran him through a series of rapid actions. It went like, put your hat on, turn around, raise your sword, smile, look angry. I can't help but picture Mulcahy running around just blabbering words. Sean was, however, hoping that the clock would strike 4 before they wrapped up, which meant he would get another 250,000 pounds. Fortunately, Mulcahy yelled wrap up just before 4, and Sean left cheekily calling him, "You bastard." Highlander grossed about $18.8 million worldwide, and Connery alone took home about $1 to $1.5 million. Even then, the entire production had to walk on eggshells around him. Mulcahy recalled that Sean was a pro, given everything was properly organized. The man made some weird demands, and they still went along with them. For instance, Connery made a written policy that no one on the set should talk to him about James Bond, and if anyone did, they would be fired. Of course, he didn't stick through with it. When Virginia Madsen, who was playing McLeod's romantic interest in the sequel, went up to Connery and squealed, "Oh my God, James Bond!" he actually hugged him with a big smile. Still, big shots in their whims.
There is one called Connor among them.
Aye.
Clancy Brown nearly beheaded Connery on set. Clancy Brown, who played the Kurgan, had to shoot an action scene with Sean. It was his first day, and the poor man was way too anxious. On top of that, he had to go up against Sean. The director made him rehearse the sequence, Clancy bursting the door, coming down, and chopping the table in half. It was all set and the camera started rolling. Clancy did the first half properly. He burst through the door, came down, but instead of slicing the table in half, he ended up swinging his sword across the candelabra and nearly took off Sean's head. Ideally, everyone would have broken down in instant laughter, after, of course, realizing that the other actor was fine. But since the other actor was the Sean Connery, it led to a lot of drama. Sean stormed out furiously, removing his costume before calling a meeting. He was convinced to continue only after the decision to use a stunt double and profuse apologies from Brown, who probably hated picking that sword up ever again. Arnold Schwarzenegger was almost the Kurgan. It seems like the Terminator-like shots were not the only connection between the two movies. The producers wanted the T-800 to be in the movie. Yes, when Sean Connery was signed up, Highlander's budget went from pauper to prince, and they got the balls to actually offer the role of the Kurgan to Arnold Schwarzenegger, because they wanted an Austrian-American for the role. Obviously, he turned it down because A, he had just played a bad guy and wasn't ready to do it again so soon, fearing a typecast. B, the role was made into a brutal, barbarian psychopath, and no way was Arnold ready to give in to the idea that he fit that role. While it saved Arnold from delivering lines like, "I have something to say, it's better to burn out than fade away," in his deadpan intensity, benefited from the film financially and also worked wonders for Brown, till he realized he was not going to make any money from it.
There can be only one.
The film started as a student script called Shadow Clan. Clancy Brown spilled quite some tea on that podcast. Highlander was a total accident.
The guy that wrote it, Greg Wyden, he was a college kid. I think he was an undergrad, and they paid a guy, $500. Here's $500 for your script. Yeah.
An undergraduate college student, Gregory Wooden, wrote a script under the title of Shadow Clan as a class assignment during his undergraduate screenwriting program at UCLA. Greg later revealed that he drew inspirations from Ridley Scott's 1977 film, The Duelists, and wanted to write something along the lines of a decades-long brutal feud between two swordsmen. The man probably got an A+ or an award, according to Clancy, because after reading it, his instructor advised him to send it to an agent. From there, the producers picked it up and bought it from Greg for $200,000.
They paid him a couple $1,000 and a portion of the budget if...
However, he was promised a percentage of the budget if the film was ever made, and boom, Highlander was on the screen and Greg was sleeping on dollars. But yeah, the final version of the script differed significantly from what Wooden wrote, but he didn't really care because who on earth thinks that Sean Connery would star in their college project, huh? Plus, as I said, the money. Greg was more than happy to probably take his girlfriend to the Beverly Hills Hotel. Christopher Lambert could barely speak English during filming. Once again, a huge casting blunder. which resulted in some unintentional comedic moments in the film. Christopher Lambert was cast to play Connor McLeod, was given the role pretty hastily after it started circulating. Mulcahy was flipping through a magazine when he saw Christopher's pictures from his recently released movie, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. Coincidentally, someone randomly suggested Lambert's name who had just won the César for Subway in 1985. Lambert was indeed being considered as a big European star back then, and probably the creator's geography was worse than mine. They glanced at a map and thought France and Scotland were practically neighbors, separated by nothing more than a bit of water. So surely a French actor who could speak English could manage a convincing Scottish accent. After all, the same continent, right? Lambert had limited English vocabulary and spent 3 months with a voice coach who carefully took him through his script line by line. He memorized the dialogues phonetically and worked really hard, yet his accent drifted heavily. Fans have often joked about his delivery of "there can be only one," teasing that it sounds less like a Highland warrior and more like a European exchange student. No worries, Lambert. We still loved you.